1971, Eastern India. It was here, at the Sanskrit College in Calcutta, that Eric von Daniken met with Professor Dilip Kanjilal to study the Vedic Sanskrit, an ancient language used in religious Hindu texts.
Professor Dilip Kanjilal has gone through old Indian texts and made modern versions of it. Now it comes out in the old books. The so-called gods, they used flying machines to travel from heaven to earth.
According to the ancient Vedic texts of India, the gods descended from the sky in flying vehicles. They refer to those vehicles as vimanas. There are very detailed descriptions what these vimanas looked like, how they traveled from place to place, what was necessary in order to pilot them. All those things are described in ancient Hindu texts that are thousands of years old.
And for Eric, he naturally felt that these vimanas were real nuts and bolts, aircraft. And of course, he's saying these are the vehicles of the ancient astronauts.
When Eric first went to India, he explored a whole bunch of different sites, and he quickly came to the realization that India is a treasure trove for the ancient astronaut theory, because all over India, we can find these magnificent temple towers that are referred to as stupas and also vimanas. And so we have to ask ourselves, where did the form for a stupa come from?
Another great contribution of Eric is that he focused on India. Very few people had really studied the ancient Indian civilization, even though it is thousands of years old. And what he saw there were structures which were alleged to have been replicas of vimanas.
So many Hindu temples in the Far East, they are representations in their architecture, what was going up in the sky. So the upper part of a Hindu temple often is seen as a flying object, as a vimana.
And basically what we're being confronted with is the realization that these people built in stone objects which they seem to have seen in the sky.
When we look at the most ancient records we have coming out of the Vedic texts in India, there are clear descriptions of aerial battles taking place, vimanas. So this really starts to raise the question about our own cycle of history. Is it completely linear, or is it possible that we're just starting to rediscover ancient technology that did exist thousands of years ago?
Ancient texts all over the world talk about flying vehicles, people who could fly through the air, flying horses. But it was Eric who really put it together, that the gods weren't just flying around like Superman. They had to get into some kind of nuts and bolts craft, just like we do, and go somewhere. And this was the chariots of the gods.
Enoch tells us about the guardians of the sky who came down. He says they are called fallen angels, and they wanted to have sex with humans. And the offspring of it were giants. So there were sexual contacts between extraterrestrials and the humans.
What does this mean? Well, it's very simple. Eric von Daniken's interpretation was, we are nothing else but hybrids of an extraterrestrial race that jump-started our civilization thousands and thousands of years ago.
Tunsberg, Norway. 50 miles south of Oslo lie the ruins of Oseberghaugen, a Viking burial mound. During excavations in 1904, archaeologists unearthed the remains of two people buried inside a Viking longship. Dated to the early 9th century, the discovery revealed for the first time some of the Vikings' ancient burial rituals.
What's very interesting about the Oseberg ship is the fact that the Vikings actually chose to bury their dead in these boats. Now, this seems very similar to some type of a conveyance, possibly going into space. You see similar references in other cultures, such as the Egyptians and even the Chinese.
Throughout Scandinavia, the British Isles, and Iceland are similar Viking burial sites, many containing boats and other ship-like markers. Is it possible the Vikings, like the ancient Egyptians and Chinese, buried their dead in boats in an effort to help their deceased on their journey to the afterlife? And if so, why? According to ancient Norse mythologies, slain Viking warriors joined Odin in his fabled hall, Valhalla.
Odin's hall in Asgard, the realm of the gods, is known as Valhalla, which literally means the hall of the slain. The way that Valhalla itself is described is that it's a place where the dead warriors that Odin has gathered from the battlefields spend all day fighting each other and killing each other, and then are brought back to life to spend the night in feasting on an endless supply of meat and pork.
The courage of the Norse explorers and warriors was directly related to the structure of their fables. Valhalla was this great reward. If you served well with great bravery, you found eternal life in the company of kindred spirits in a great banquet hall.
Stories and legends about Odin's enormous palace describe it as being almost metallic, with shimmering walls and a golden roof.
During the day, they drink and they eat along these long tables and with fires down the center of the hall. And then after they've eaten, they clear the tables and they all battle. So this must be tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands. The imagination boggles at how big this hall must be.
But is there evidence that Valhalla was more than just a mythic place? Could it have been an extraterrestrial spacecraft, as some ancient astronaut theorists believe?
Valhalla was not a figment of our ancestors' imagination, but it might have been some type of an orbiting space station. The reason why I'm saying this is because whenever we have a description of Valhalla, it is an incredible description of a place that has weird attributes.
Various descriptions of Valhalla give it the reference of being some type of a large metallic ship, but they actually bury their dead in the ships as well. So is this some type of reference of them actually trying to replicate sending their dead to the heavens, or just like their gods would be returning to the heavens in some type of a large metallic ship?
Archaeological evidence, as well as contemporary accounts, also indicate that in addition to burying their dead in boats, the Norse Vikings also sent many of these burial boats out to sea and burned them. But why? Was it simply a fiery tribute, one meant to honor the deceased? Or did the ancient Vikings simply replicate something their ancestors had once witnessed, perhaps the launch of an alien spacecraft?
So my question is whether or not our ancestors witnessed rockets or spaceships taking off and landing with all of this fire and the smoke and the earth trembling, that they over time thought that by burning their dead, they would imitate what they saw in the past.
Japan, 660 BC. Emperor Jimmu becomes the first ruler of the island nation's imperial family. According to legend, the ancient Japanese also believed Jimmu was the direct descendant of the sun goddess, Amaterasu.
The Japanese people worshipped a deity named Amaterasu, who was believed to shine like the sun. She sent her descendants to Earth in order to bring order out of chaos. Japan's first emperor, Jimmu, directly connected himself as a descendant of Amaterasu, therefore setting up his lineage and connection to this divinity.
He was
the man who united the island of Japan's various warring factions into one country. And all emperors since Jimmu have all claimed descent from the sun goddess. And the reason why the Japanese flag has this rising sun is that it represents the descent from the sun goddess.
According to legend, the sun goddess Amaterasu gave 3 gifts to Jimmu: a mirror, a jewel, and a sword. Known as the imperial regalia of Japan, it is believed that with these divine artifacts, Jimmu was able to control his empire.
Apart from the emperor and a few elite priests, no one's ever allowed to see them. So where they are, nobody knows. But it is said that in 3 separate shrines in Japan, which are also tourist attractions, somewhere deep inside them, the priesthood keeps these secret crown jewels that no one is ever allowed to see.
But what unique powers might these 3 divine gifts have possessed? Might they have been not merely symbols of power, but examples of highly advanced extraterrestrial technology?
According to legend, this mirror was quite extraordinary.
They say in this mirror he could see what happened at every minute around all the islands in the Pacific Oceans. At every minute. So what is this mirror? Some technical device?
So what is it that we're looking at here? Well, if you look at it from a perspective of misunderstood technology, then next time you look at your computer monitor and you look at a YouTube clip from, let's say, the Iguazu Falls, then you're looking at a magic mirror that shows you everything in the world.
And you kind of have to wonder here whether these objects had more power than just an ordinary thing. And perhaps they were actually highly technical objects given to him by extraterrestrials, by the gods, to help him as the first emperor.
Gamla Uppsala, Sweden. This small town, 40 miles north of Stockholm, is one of the oldest continuously inhabited sites in Scandinavia. Beneath this church, archaeologists have found what they believe are the remains of a famous temple called Uppsala. According to a 14th century text called the Deeds of Bishops of the Hamburg Church, this ornate temple was built to honor the most powerful Viking gods: Odin, Thor, and Freyr.
Frey is the main fertility god of Norse mythology. The rituals that we do have evidence of connected to Frey seem always to be connected to peace and prosperity. So all of these characteristics show him in a relationship with humans that's centered around prosperity and fertility of various types.
Freyr was believed to control the weather and was renowned for his diplomatic skills, quieting the feuds among the numerous Viking gods and giants. And in the Viking pantheon, it was a deity named Loki who provoked the most conflict among these gods.
Loki is actually not a god. He's a giant who is counted amongst the gods. And at the end of time, he actually leads the dead and the giants against the gods.
He's that transgressive character who makes possible all of these conflicts that the gods then have to solve. Without Loki, a lot of the conflicts disappear and you don't have a mythology at all.
According to the stories compiled within the books of the Eddas, Loki tries to atone for one of his many acts of mischief by giving Freyr a ship called Skidbladnir.
Freyr's ship Skidbladnir was the most fine craft that ever was in the water. It could go anywhere at great speed, and then, if he needed it to be small, he could put it in a small pouch to carry it around.
Skidbladnir is remarkable because you can fold it up and stick it in your pocket. But when you unfold it, it's one of the greatest Viking ships ever. It always has a wind. It always has a fair wind, so you don't have to tack. It always gets you where you're going in a hurry. And then once you get it to shore, you don't have to worry about where you're going to stow it. To be able to fold up your boat and put it in your pocket really has to be about the greatest thing that you can imagine if you're a Viking shipbuilder.
But could it be that Skidbladnir was not the product of mythic imagination, but was, in fact, an actual spacecraft, one that was witnessed by early Scandinavians? Ancient astronaut theorists say yes, and believe the proof lies in the legends of a race of beings who are believed to have built the magical tools used by the gods.
In Norse mythology, the sons of Ivaldi were these dwarves who made these special weapons for Thor and Odin and the other Norse gods. And so here were these dwarves, these gnomes, these small people. They're making these special, very high-tech weapons. The Norse gods are using them. So you have to wonder just who these mini people are.
The sons of Ivaldi were the master craftsmen of the gods in the Norse system, and they made each of these special things that are going to be needed by these heroic gods to do their deeds.
Might the sons of Ivaldi actually be the engineers behind the building of Skidbladnir, the magical ship used by the Norse god Freyr? If so, who or what were they?
Now the question is whether the sons of Vivaldi are real dwarves, the way we know dwarves today, or whether they are somehow more mythical, or whether the label dwarf actually stuck to them because they were somehow smaller. And of course today we quite often describe the grey alien archetype as dwarfish as well, simply because they are smaller.
Is it possible that these little people who are making these high-tech weapons were really gray aliens? And because they didn't know how to describe them, they will call them dwarves or little people? And these little people are the ones who are making these high-tech weapons for these Norse gods. And it would seem that these weapons are extraterrestrial in nature.